The sky over Manhattan had never seemed so crowded, not with birds nor planes, but with the eyes of the world fixed on the dark, sleek shape of the Athonian spacecraft that hung silent and imposing above Central Park. Below, a sea of onlookers, media, and security swarmed, their faces a mix of fear, curiosity, and awe. In the hastily established command center on the ground, Dr. Eli Turner, a young geneticist known for his work on human genetics, tapped his pen against his notepad nervously. Beside him, General Marcus Reed, a career military man with a stern face and a strategic mind, watched the screens intently. "Dr. Turner, your expertise could be crucial today," General Reed said, his voice gruff but not unkind. "We need to understand their intentions and whether their genetics pose a threat or an opportunity for us." Eli nodded, swallowing his anxiety. "We'll need to approach this with an open mind. Their technology is likely beyond anything we've seen." As they spoke, the central screen flickered, and a figure appeared. It was an Athonian, humanoid but with skin that shimmered like the night sky filled with stars. Its eyes were a deep violet, penetrating and intelligent. "I am Lyra of Athon," the alien spoke, its voice a melodic echo that filled the room. "We come in peace and seek your collaboration." General Reed stepped forward, his posture rigid. "I'm General Marcus Reed, representing the Earth Defense Coalition. What kind of collaboration are you proposing?" "Our people face a genetic decline," Lyra explained. "We seek to integrate our DNA with compatible species to enhance our resilience. We have observed your species and believe a partnership could be beneficial." Eli felt a chill at the implications. "You mean to breed with humans?" he asked, his scientific curiosity piqued yet cautious. "Not in the way you interpret it," Lyra responded. "We use advanced genetic engineering to combine traits. No one would be harmed or coerced. We value consent as much as you do." General Reed looked over at Eli, who was already considering the possibilities. "And what do we stand to gain from this?" "Shared advancements in technology, medicine, and more," Lyra continued. "It's a mutual enrichment for both our species." Eli exchanged a glance with General Reed, who nodded slightly. It was a decision too big for the two of them, but they could start the conversation. "Let's say we're interested," Eli said, stepping closer to the communication setup. "We need to discuss this with our leaders, and you'll need to provide us with much more information." "Of course," Lyra replied, a smile flickering on her alien lips. "We look forward to a fruitful dialogue." As the transmission ended, Eli and General Reed turned to the room full of military leaders, scientists, and politicians who had been listening intently. "We have a lot to consider," General Reed stated, addressing the room. "But opportunities like this don't come often. Dr. Turner, I want you to lead the scientific inquiry. Get your best team together. We need to understand exactly what they're offering and what they want from us." Eli nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility settle on his shoulders. "I'll gather the team immediately. We need the best minds on this to ensure our planet's safety and future." The general clapped him on the back, a gesture of solidarity. "I know you're the right man for the job, Turner. Let's make history." As the meeting dispersed, Eli felt the surge of adrenaline at the challenge ahead. Working with the Athonians could change everything. He was determined to ensure it would change things for the better. Chapter 2: The Agreement. In a secure conference room, under the stark artificial light, leaders from around the globe sat around a large oval table. Dr. Eli Turner was present, notepad ready, alongside General Marcus Reed, who was discussing the broad strokes of a potential agreement with the Athonians. "We must ensure that any agreement respects our sovereignty and security," stated President Martinez, a decisive figure in international politics. "This isn't just about science. It's about ensuring the stability of our societies." Eli nodded in agreement, looking over at the Athonian delegation through the two-way screen. Lyra was there, along with her colleague, Saren, a robust Athonian with a keen gaze that seemed to miss nothing. "Understood, President Martinez," Lyra responded. "We are prepared to provide assurances." our technology and knowledge in exchange for your genetic collaboration. All activities will be transparent and under joint supervision. General Reed interjected, "We'll need to establish a bilateral council to oversee this operation. It can't just be a free-for-all." Saren nodded. "A council is agreeable. We propose an equal number of representatives from both sides to ensure fairness and mutual respect." Eli saw an opportunity to speak up. From a scientific standpoint, the potential for advancements in genetics and medicine is unprecedented. But we must proceed with caution, ensuring that all participation is voluntary and ethical. Dr. Samira Khan, a renowned bioethicist, added, "Dr. Turner is right. We need strict protocols for consent and withdrawal, and we need to address any potential health risks proactively." The discussion turned to the specifics of how human participants would be selected. Dr. Chun, a geneticist, suggested, "We should use a genetic compatibility index to identify potential candidates. This would minimize risks and enhance the potential benefits of hybrid vigor." Eli wrote down notes furiously as the conversation continued, his mind racing with the implications of each decision. General Reed looked towards the military advisors in the room. "And let's not forget the strategic implications. We need to have our defense protocols in place just in case." Lyra assured him, "Our intentions are peaceful. Our planet thrives on harmony, and we wish to extend that to our partnership with you." As the meeting drew to a close, President Martinez summarized, "Let's draft a preliminary agreement based on today's discussions. We'll need legal, scientific, and ethical experts to refine it before anything is signed." "Agreed," Saren said. "We will prepare our own experts to consult on the agreement." Eli stood up, feeling the weight of the future pressing down on him. "I'll start assembling a task force from our side. We'll need the best minds available." General Reed nodded in approval. "Good. Keep me updated, Turner. We're navigating uncharted waters here." As the participants filed out of the room, Eli approached Lyra's image on the screen. "Thank you, Lyra, for your cooperation. I believe we're on the path to something truly groundbreaking." Lyra's smile was warm. "Indeed, Dr. Turner. I look forward to our collaboration." With the foundation of their agreement taking shape, Eli felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. He was about to dive into the most significant project of his career, possibly of his life. The challenges were daunting, but the potential to bridge worlds was an opportunity he could not let pass. Chapter 3, Learning from Lyra. Eli Turner spent the following weeks immersed in the setup of the Joint Task Force's operational base, situated near the landing site of the Athonian spacecraft. The base, a blend of human and Athonian technologies, was a symbol of their budding partnership. Here, Eli, alongside his newly formed team of international scientists, prepared to delve into a collaborative exchange of knowledge and culture. Dr. Chun and Dr. Mikhail Ivanov, a sharp-minded Russian virologist, joined Eli as they toured the facility with Lyra and Saren. The Athonians had brought with them equipment that melded technology with organic components, unlike anything the humans had seen before. "This is the gene sequencer," Lyra explained, gesturing to a sleek, silver device that pulsed with a soft, blue light. "It's much more advanced than yours. It can sequence DNA in real time and identify compatible traits between species." Dr. Chun, always curious, leaned closer. "Fascinating. Could we integrate this tech with ours to speed up our research?" "Certainly," Saren replied, his voice deep and reassuring. "That is the spirit of our collaboration, after all." Eli took notes, mentally scheduling a series of workshops. "We should organize training sessions for our teams. Understanding your technology will greatly enhance our efficiency." As they moved through the facility, they reached a communal area designed for social interaction between the two species. Lyra turned to the group, her eyes reflecting a serious yet hopeful gaze. "It's also important that we understand each other beyond the science. Our cultures, our philosophies." Dr. Ivanov, whose interests lay beyond the biological, nodded appreciatively. "I agree. Perhaps a series of cultural exchanges? Lectures, discussions, shared meals." Lyra smiled. Exactly. Tonight, we invite you to a traditional Athonian meal. We hope you will join us. The evening arrived, and the human scientists gathered in the communal area, where low tables were set with a variety of Athonian dishes. Eli watched as Lyra demonstrated how to eat a particularly gelatinous dish with utensils that resembled art more than cutlery. As they ate, Saren told tales of Athon, of its cities that rose and fell with the tides and its fields that sparkled under triple moons. The humans, in turn, shared stories of Earth's natural wonders and diverse cultures. Eli found himself next to Lyra, their earlier conversations turning more personal. "What drove you to science?" he asked. Lyra's eyes twinkled with the reflection of the room's soft lights. "The desire to preserve our planet. We faced many challenges, much like your Earth. Science seemed like a way to make a difference. And has it?" Eli probed, genuinely interested. "In many ways, yes, but challenges keep evolving. Now, our hope lies in this new venture with your kind." The night deepened, and laughter mixed with the clinking of utensils. Eli felt a sense of camaraderie building, a bridge of mutual respect and curiosity forming between the two species. As the gathering ended, Eli and Lyra walked a short distance outside, looking up at the stars that were home to neither yet belonged to both. This partnership could be something remarkable, Eli mused aloud. Lyra nodded, her expression thoughtful. Yes, but based on mutual understanding and respect. Tonight was a good start. Eli agreed. It's more than just the science. It's finding common ground, learning from each other. I think we're on the right path. As they returned inside, Eli felt energized, not just by the potential scientific breakthroughs, but by the deeper, more personal connections being forged. This project was not just about genetics. It was about weaving the fabric of a new shared reality, one thread at a time. Chapter 4. The breeding program begins. Morning light filtered through the glass panels of the Joint Human-Athonian Research Complex. Dr. Eli Turner stood at one of the central workstations, reviewing the final protocols for the genetic integration trials. Beside him was Dr. Mikhail Ivanov, who had taken on the role of liaison between the various teams. "So," Mikhail said, tapping a stylus against a tablet, "are we ready to begin the first sequences today?" Eli nodded. "We've checked compatibility profiles and run multiple simulations. Lyra and Saren have already prepared their part. All that's left is to start the process." Across the room, Lyra approached with Saren. Her expression was calm, yet her eyes revealed a touch of nervous anticipation. "Eli," she said, "the Athonian chambers are calibrated and operational. I trust your systems are as well." "They are," Eli replied. He turned to Mikhail. "What do you think? Should we do one final walkthrough before we proceed?" Mikhail smiled faintly. No harm in being thorough. The group made their way into the primary research bay. Athonian equipment hummed softly, blending with the quieter hum of human machinery. As they checked each station, Eli and Lyra fell into a rhythm. They reviewed data displays together, verifying readings and double-checking every variable. "So these compatibility indexes," Eli said, "how do you determine the threshold for a successful hybrid genome?" Lyra explained, "Our algorithms assess shared genetic markers, metabolic compatibility, and neurological alignment. It's not just physical traits. We're looking for harmonious functionality." Mikhail leaned in, examining a screen. "And once we have the embryo, what's the gestation process?" "That depends on the environment we select," Saren replied. "We've constructed hybrid gestation chambers, but we'll also test traditional methods for comparison." As they continued their checks, Lyra paused, glancing at Eli. "You seem more at ease than you were during our first meeting." Eli chuckled softly. "Maybe I'm just getting used to working with aliens." She tilted her head, a slight smile on her lips. "Or perhaps you're realizing we're not so different after all." Mikhail glanced between them, a knowing look passing over his face. "I'll go check on the sequencing station," he said, leaving them alone. Eli found himself facing Lyra directly. "I guess I am learning that, and I think this project, as controversial as it is, could lead to something greater than just scientific data. Lyra stepped closer, her tone softening. It's about understanding, Eli. If we can create something meaningful, life that represents both our worlds, then perhaps we've already succeeded. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the weight of the mission, the political pressures, and the scientific intricacies faded. Lyra's hand lightly brushed Eli's arm, and he felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the sterile lab environment. Before either of them could say more, Mikhail's voice called from across the room. All systems are showing green. We're ready to initiate the first integration process. Eli nodded to Lyra, their connection unspoken but understood. Together, they walked to the main control console, where Mikhail was inputting the final sequence. "Start it up," Eli said, his voice steady. Mikhail tapped a few commands, and the machinery whirred to life. A large cylindrical chamber at the center of the room lit up, its interior displaying a shimmering blue substance. "This is it," Lyra murmured. "The first step." Eli watched the readouts, heart pounding. The moment felt monumental, yet deeply personal. All around him, the team worked in unison, humans and Athonians blending their expertise, their trust in one another growing stronger with every shared success. As the chamber's lights dimmed, Lyra turned to Eli. "It worked." Eli smiled, feeling a rare sense of accomplishment. "Now the real work begins." He reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you, Lyra, for believing in this." Lyra covered his hand with hers, nodding. "Thank you, Eli, for making it possible." In that moment, the partnership between their species became more than a diplomatic initiative or a scientific endeavor. It became a bond built on mutual respect, collaboration, and the potential for something far greater than either had imagined. Chapter 5: Unexpected Results. The first hybrid embryo was flourishing faster than anticipated. It developed steadily under the careful watch of both the human and Athonian teams, who monitored its progress around the clock. In the control room, Dr. Eli Turner stood beside Dr. Mikhail Ivanov, reviewing the latest genetic analysis. The lines of data streamed down the screen like cascading rain. "This growth rate is remarkable," Mikhail said, shaking his head in disbelief. "It's beyond anything we've seen in human or Athonian development." Eli crossed his arms, gazing at the data. "It's not just the speed. Look here." He tapped a sequence on the screen, highlighting a particular strand. "Neurological development is happening in parallel with physical growth. Normally, we'd expect a delay." At that moment, Lyra entered the room. She carried a tablet, her violet eyes scanning the displays with practiced ease. "Saren and I were just discussing this," she said. "We believe the hybrid's genetic code is creating synergies that accelerate certain functions. It's as though the DNA strands are collaborating." "Synergies," Mikhail muttered, "almost as if they were designed for each other." Eli glanced at Lyra. "Do you think it's purely genetic, or could there be an environmental factor? Something in our joint approach to the gestation chamber?" Lyra tilted her head, considering. "The chamber is calibrated perfectly, but the genetic compatibility might be the key. There's a harmony we didn't entirely predict." Dr. Samira Khan entered, adjusting her lab coat and looking concerned. "Harmony or not, we need to start thinking about the ethical implications if this development continues at such an unprecedented pace. Have you considered what will happen once the first hybrids reach maturity?" The room fell silent. Mikhail cleared his throat. "We're not there yet. Let's focus on monitoring their current progress before we jump to conclusions." Eli nodded, but Samira's words lingered in his mind. "You're right," he admitted. "We need to have a discussion about long-term plans. For now, let's stick to the data." Lyra stepped closer to Eli, lowering her voice. "I understand Samira's concerns, but I believe we're on the right path. This project was never going to be without challenges, but we're making discoveries that could benefit both our species." Eli met her gaze. "I know. It's just, every time we move forward, there are more questions than answers." Mikhail chuckled dryly. "That's the nature of science, Turner. If we ever run out of questions, we're out of a job." As the team continued their work, Saren arrived with new results from the Athonian equipment. The nutrient matrices we've been using may also be contributing to the accelerated growth, he said. It's worth exploring if human methods could replicate these effects. Eli looked at Mikhail. We should start side-by-side tests. Compare Athonian nutrient solutions with human-developed ones and see how they influence growth. Agreed, Mikhail said, typing rapidly into his tablet. We'll need a controlled environment, but we can set it up quickly. Hours passed in a blur of calculations, adjustments, and data analysis. The team worked in a coordinated rhythm, their initial uncertainty now replaced with cautious optimism. At one point, Eli stepped out into the adjacent observation corridor to clear his mind. The transparent walls provided a view of the stars, and he felt a momentary sense of calm. Lyra joined him, her presence subtle but reassuring. You look troubled, she said softly. Eli shook his head. Not troubled, just trying to wrap my head around everything. This project is moving faster than I expected, and with each new development, it feels like we're venturing further into uncharted territory. She touched his arm gently. That's why we're here, to navigate this together. He turned to face her, finding comfort in her calm demeanor. I know, and I appreciate that. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lyra added, We'll figure it out, Eli. One step at a time. Back in the lab, the team reconvened, and Eli felt a renewed sense of focus. They had work to do, and while the path ahead was uncertain, they would move forward, together. Chapter 6: Crisis of Conscience. The control room hummed with activity. Eli Turner leaned over his console, fingers tapping nervously against the edge of the screen. Mikhail Ivanov stood next to him, stroking his beard thoughtfully as they reviewed the latest wave of data. The hybrid subjects were developing in ways that surpassed all projections, but the political fallout from their work was growing harder to ignore. Protests have started outside the facility, Mikhail said, glancing at a news feed on his tablet. Human activists claim we're playing God. Some Athonian factions argue that we're diluting their genetic legacy. Eli sighed. We knew this would be controversial, but the scale of the backlash, I didn't anticipate this level of fear. Lyra stepped into the room, her expression serious. It's not just fear. It's about identity for both of our species. The hybrids represent something entirely new. Change like this is never easy. Saren followed, his voice steady as he added, Our council is divided. Some see this program as a chance to strengthen our species, while others fear it will erode what it means to be Athonian. The debates are intensifying. Eli ran a hand through his hair, trying to process the gravity of the situation. What's the next step? How do we address these concerns without shutting down the program? We need more transparency, Lyra said. Public discussions, open forums, and a clear explanation of the safeguards we've put in place. Mikhail nodded in agreement. The more people understand the science and the ethics behind it, the harder it will be for extremists to twist the narrative. Dr. Samira Khan entered, looking exasperated. Easier said than done. Emotions are running high on both sides. People don't respond to logic when they're scared. They need to see results, positive outcomes that directly benefit their lives. Like what? Eli asked. How do we showcase results when the hybrids are still in early stages of development? Focus on the medical advancements, Samira suggested. We've already seen genetic combinations that could lead to breakthroughs in curing diseases. If we can highlight those applications, it might shift public perception. Lyra tilted her head, considering. It's a risk, though. If we emphasize medical benefits, it could reinforce fears that we're treating life as a commodity. Then we show them the humanity, Eli said, his voice firm. These hybrids aren't just experiments. They're individuals. People need to understand that. Mikhail looked skeptical. You're suggesting we introduce them to the public? Not yet, Eli replied. But eventually, yes. For now, we focus on communication. Interviews with the research team, behind-the-scenes footage of the process, and dialogue sessions where we answer questions directly. Saren stepped forward. If we do this, we must be careful. Any perceived misstep will only fuel opposition. Understood, Eli said. But doing nothing isn't an option. We can't let fear dictate progress. Over the next few weeks, the team put their plan into action. Lyra and Eli co-hosted virtual Q&A sessions, explaining the science and addressing ethical concerns. Mikhail and Samira worked on publishing detailed reports that outlined the strict protocols in place. Saren coordinated with Athonian representatives to ensure that their cultural values were respected and highlighted. One evening, as the team gathered in the communal area, Eli noticed the atmosphere was unusually quiet. He turned to Mikhail. "What's going on? Everyone seems on edge." Mikhail glanced around and then lowered his voice. "There's been a development. A faction of Athonian dissidents is threatening to sabotage the program. They claim it's a betrayal of their heritage." Lyra frowned. "Sabotage? That's a serious accusation. Do we have any proof?" Mikhail handed her a tablet with intercepted messages. "It's still unconfirmed, but the security team is on high alert." Eli felt a pit form in his stomach. "We can't let this derail everything. We need to find a way to engage with these dissidents, understand their concerns, and address them." Lyra nodded. "Agreed. Dialogue is our best option. If we can show them that their heritage isn't being erased but rather enhanced, we might win their support." That night, Eli and Lyra worked late, drafting a proposal for a cultural exchange program. They hoped that by fostering deeper understanding between humans and Athonians, they could diffuse tensions and build trust. As they finished, Eli turned to Lyra. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch reassuring. "I believe we are. This project is bigger than any one of us. It's about creating something new, something that can benefit both our species." Eli nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. Together, they would navigate the challenges ahead, one step at a time. Chapter 7: Defending Their Choices. The protest outside the facility had grown larger over the last few days. From his place in the observation tower, Eli Turner could see a mass of people carrying banners, some reading "No to Hybrids" and "Human Purity Matters." On the other side of the line, a smaller group held signs of support, "A New Future" and "Science for All." "It's getting worse," Mikhail Ivanov said as he joined Eli at the window. "We're one leaked report away from this becoming a full-scale crisis." Eli turned to his colleague. "It's already a crisis. Every decision we make feels like stepping on a minefield. We need to convince people this program isn't some dystopian experiment." Mikhail nodded grimly. "Easier said than done. Fear spreads faster than facts." Lyra appeared in the doorway, her expression tight. "We just had another incident. A small group of Athonian dissidents broke into one of our data centers. Security managed to stop them, but it's a clear message. They think we're tampering with their identity." Eli rubbed his temples. "What do they want us to do? Stop the program entirely? Go back to the status quo?" "It's more complicated than that," Lyra said. "They feel their culture is being overshadowed. They see the hybrids as a potential erasure of who they are." Mikhail looked at both of them. "We need to address this before someone gets hurt. How do we change the narrative?" Eli thought for a moment before speaking. "We have to show them what this program is really about, why it's not an attack on their identity, but an extension of it. That means getting the hybrids involved." "You're suggesting we let the hybrids speak for themselves?" Lyra asked, raising an eyebrow. "Eventually, yes," Eli replied. "But first we need to show everyone what these hybrids represent. Not as weapons, not as experiments, but as individuals who embody the best of both species." Mikhail tapped his tablet. "We could put together a documentary. Show the science, the culture, the humanity behind this. And it has to be personal," Lyra added. "Stories, interviews, not just data charts and scientific breakthroughs, but real, living examples of how this program is building something meaningful." Later that day, the team met in the main conference room to plan the campaign. Samira Khan was already setting up a list of potential interview subjects. "We need compelling voices," she said. People who can articulate the vision and calm the fears. Dr. Chun would be a good choice, Mikhail suggested. She's been one of the most vocal advocates, and she has a way of explaining complex science so anyone can understand. I'll do it, Eli said suddenly. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to him. I've been part of this program since the beginning. I believe in it, and I'm willing to stand in front of the cameras to show the world why it matters. Lyra smiled faintly. That's a brave move, Eli. I don't know if it's brave, Eli replied, but it's necessary. Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly on the campaign. They recorded interviews with scientists, Athonian elders, and cultural leaders who supported the program. They highlighted the medical advancements that had come from the research, showcasing how hybrid genetic discoveries were already improving the lives of countless people. In one particularly moving segment, Lyra spoke about the Athonian perspective. For us, this isn't about losing who we are. It's about growing into something more. This program isn't a rejection of our past. It's a bridge to our future. Mikhail filmed scenes from the research labs, showing the hybrid children learning, playing, and engaging with both human and Athonian cultures. They're not just test subjects, Mikhail narrated. They're living proof that we can create something better together. Eli spent long hours in front of the camera, answering tough questions and responding to critics. Yes, it's a complex issue, he said during one interview. But complexity isn't a reason to stop progress. It's a reason to think carefully, to act responsibly, and to remember that we're all in this together. As the documentary neared completion, the team held a private screening. Lyra, sitting next to Eli, leaned in close and whispered, "You did well. This might actually make a difference." Eli looked at her and smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you." Their eyes lingered on each other for a moment before turning back to the screen. The documentary ended with a hopeful note, highlighting the hybrid's potential to bring humanity and Athonians closer than ever before. The next day, the documentary was released worldwide. While it didn't end all the protests or erase the fears, it shifted the tone of the debate. People began to see the hybrids not as a threat, but as an opportunity to build something new together. Chapter 8. A New Dawn. The facility was quiet in the early hours, the usual hum of activity reduced to a gentle murmur as the final stages of the hybrid integration program were set into motion. Eli Turner sat in the observation room, staring through the glass at the children, part Athonian, part human, running and playing in the courtyard below. The culmination of years of research, debate, and collaboration was now a living reality. Mikhail Ivanov joined him, a cup of coffee in hand. He slid into the chair next to Eli, following his gaze. "Hard to believe we're here, huh?" Eli nodded, his arms crossed. "It's been a long road, but seeing them now, it feels like it was worth it." Mikhail sipped his coffee. The protests have died down. People are starting to accept that these hybrids aren't some kind of threat. They're just kids. "They're more than that," Eli said. "They're a bridge. They're proof that our species can not only coexist but create something better together." As the sun rose higher, Lyra entered the room, her violet eyes warm and her posture relaxed. "Good morning," she greeted, her voice light. "It's been some time since I've seen you both looking this calm." Mikhail chuckled. "Speak for yourself. I'm still waiting for the next disaster." Lyra smiled and moved to stand by Eli. "It's strange, isn't it? After all the debates, the arguments, and the challenges, here we are." Eli glanced at her, then back at the children. "They don't seem to care about any of that. They just see each other as friends." "That's the beauty of it," Lyra said. "They're not burdened by the history we carry. They get to start fresh." Mikhail leaned back in his chair. "So what's next for us? We've been putting out fires for so long. I'm not sure I remember how to just keep going." Eli thought for a moment. "We keep learning. The hybrids are still young. We need to understand how they'll adapt, how they'll grow. There's still so much we don't know. Not to mention," Lyra added, "the cultural exchange. Both humans and Athonians have traditions, stories, and technologies that can enrich each other." The hybrids could lead the way in creating a shared identity. Mikhail raised his coffee mug. To a shared identity, then, whatever that ends up looking like. Eli smiled faintly, appreciating Mikhail's rare moment of optimism. I'll drink to that. The three of them sat quietly for a moment, each lost in thought. The past few years had tested them all, pushing them to their limits and forcing them to confront their own beliefs. And yet, as they watched the children playing together below, it was clear that something new and promising was taking shape. Later that day, the hybrid integration program held its first open house. Families from both species arrived to meet the children and see the progress firsthand. The courtyard buzzed with conversation and laughter as humans and Athonians mingled, sharing food, stories, and moments of connection. Eli found himself speaking with a young couple who had recently volunteered for the program. They were eager, curious, and just a little nervous. He reassured them, drawing on his own experience and what he'd learned from Lyra. Nearby, Mikhail was deep in discussion with an Athonian elder, their voices animated as they exchanged ideas about combining human engineering techniques with Athonian bioorganic materials. Lyra, meanwhile, stood at a demonstration table, showing a group of curious onlookers the Athonian gene sequencer and explaining how it had revolutionized their understanding of genetics. As the sun set and the visitors began to leave, the courtyard grew quieter once more. Eli joined Lyra and Mikhail at one of the picnic tables, the three of them looking out over the now empty space. Well, Mikhail said, stretching, I'd call that a success. Lyra smiled, her hands resting lightly on the table. It's just the beginning. We still have so much to learn from each other. Eli nodded, his gaze drifting to the stars overhead. And for once, it feels like we're looking forward rather than backward. They sat in comfortable silence, each feeling the weight of what they'd accomplished. The path had been anything but easy, but together, they had taken the first steps toward something greater than any one of them. As the stars continued their silent watch, the three of them knew that the real work was only beginning. But now there was a shared understanding, a foundation on which to build. Together, they would see it through.